Hello everyone, my name is Ivo and welcome to Cooking with the Koyas. As you know, I love to bake bread, and on my channel I have all kinds of recipes. Artisan bread, Italian bread, rye bread, sourdough bread, focaccia, gluten-free bread. It's all there, check it out. But today we're gonna make a different bread, a softer, more subtle bread with a softer crumb and a great crust. And it's all about the flour. The flour you use when you're making your bread, folks, makes a big difference. So let's get started right now. I'm going to share with you my version of a nice, softer loaf of bread. Yes, I have my weigh scale here, and of course, everything gets weighed. That's very, very important. Okay, so to start off, we need more softer, subtle flour. So we're going to start off with, I have a 00 flour here, high protein 00, which is happens to be the Caputo Saccharosa, which is also their chef's flour, but you could use any 00 flour you want. This one is high in protein with 13%. So get a 00 flour that's higher in protein, and the advantage of the 00, folks, is that it's very soft. It's been ground more than once. And it's a very, very fine flour. So I'm going to measure out 300 grams, and I will put all the conversions in the description for you regarding to ounces. But right now, let's talk grams. So 300 grams of a nice, soft, subtle 00 flour. Then we're going to add 50 grams of semola. Semola is semolina that's been reground. Rimacinata. So a semola flour is very, very, very fine semolina. So again, we're sticking with that theme because we want that nice, soft, subtle bread. So, but we also want it to be artisan and have that nice rustic flair to it. So this is going to do the job for us. So I'm going to add 50 grams of the semola flour, which is yellow in color, by the way. And it's readily available. It's not hard to find. Okay, so 50 grams of semola. Then, folks, for the whole wheat. Now, here's the ticket with the whole wheat. I'm going to use this organic whole wheat. It is, if I can read it here. Here it is here, what I'm looking for. It is stone ground. It is stone ground and very, very fine. It's not like your typical coarse whole wheat. It is a very, very fine grind of whole wheat. So we're going to stick with that fine grind list of ingredients, and we're going to add 100 grams here. So let's bring it up. 100 grams of this nice, beautiful, beautiful stone ground, happens to be organic, whole wheat flour from Italy. I don't know, does it get any better than that? I don't think so. Okay, this is a beautiful flour, folks. Okay, and let's put 100 grams in, and almost there, a little more, and I'm being picky, Gotcha. So it's a total of 450 grams with those three flours combined. Now, to the flour, we're going to add 10 grams of salt, just regular table salt, folks, and that's about 1.5 teaspoons. So in it goes. We're also going to add about 4 grams of diastatic malt powder. Now, you don't need this necessarily, but it's a superfood for the yeast. I highly recommend it. And it's also about 1.5 teaspoons or 4 grams. And the other dry ingredient, folks, is instant yeast. 1/4 teaspoon of instant yeast. So let's get our yeast. Oh, let's get the the top is off, but not the inner pack. Let's get that out. Okay, it'll work better now. Oh my goodness. Okay, so 1/4 teaspoon of instant yeast. Okay, there we go. We're gonna add that. And now, quite simply, just mix all those ingredients together so that they're uniform. Okay, that's it for the dry ingredients. Let's add our wet ingredients now. So here I've weighed my water. I've got 280 grams of water here. And you know how I mentioned the protein on the 00 was 13%? the protein level on that whole wheat stone ground flour was 13.3% and the semela was 14%. So they're all over 13%, and that's what you want. A nice high protein flour mix. So 280 grams of water goes into with our flour. And the other ingredient, folks, that we're going to add, I have some sourdough. It's actually almost sourdough discard. It's on its way out. I'm going to add 200 grams of sourdough discard, but don't worry, if you don't have sourdough or sourdough discard, just use 100 grams of flour and 100 grams of water, okay? So I'm going to add 200 grams of this sourdough discard, because now we're going to also get that beautiful sourdough flavor into our bread. Okay, so getting there. And okay, 202, take out a little, there we go, 201, close enough, okay. All right, now that we have our dry ingredients and our wet ingredients, quite simply, let's mix together. So I've got a nice firm spatula here. You could use a wooden spoon as well. I really like to use that firm spatula because I can scrape the edge of my bowl, scrape the edges and get all that flour. Now we're going to get in there with our hands, don't worry folks, but get it mixed around as best as you can, and then we're going to get in there with our hands. Okay, I got most of the flour picked up. You can see there, I've worked it and I've got most of the flour picked up. But now I'm just going to make sure I get all that flour, get all that dough. I can still see there's some, I don't know if you can see there or not, but there's still some loose flour there floating around. And we're going to pick all that up. Just keep working it and pick up all that flour. Now you can do this in a metal bowl. I like these containers because I can put a lid on them afterwards. Okay, so now I've basically picked up all the flour, okay? So now what you're gonna wanna do with this dough is you wanna get all the ingredients work together. So just grab the dough, squeeze it in your hands, and just keep working it. Squeeze it, squeeze it, squeeze it. So I turn it around and just squeeze, okay? And as you do that, the flour is gonna continue to absorb the water, and you're going to work those glutens, folks, the gluten network. You're working it. So I'm going to do this for, let's say, 2 minutes. Okay, and as you do this, folks, you're going to feel the dough start to firm up and become less moisture, but it is going to stick to your hands, okay? It is definitely going to stick, but you can see here the dough that we've got, and yes, it's sticking to our hands, but it's definitely firmed up from the first time that we've mixed it. Okay, so let's get this covered up right now. You can see that's normal, okay? But the next time we go to process it, it won't be as sticky. Now that my hands are clean, let's take a look at this dough. You can see there, okay? And all I'm gonna do now, I'm just gonna kind of shape it into a round. You don't have to, you can leave it just the way it is, but it makes me feel better, right? Okay, there we go. It's shaped into a round, just like that. Okay, so now you can see the level where we're sitting at right here in our container. What we're gonna do is we're gonna cover it, and that's why I love these containers. If you don't have a container like this, just again, cover with a sheet of plastic over your metal bowl. And we're just gonna cover this, and it's gonna sit now, folks, for 12 hours. We're going to let it sit right here at room temperature for 12 hours. So I like to start this bread the night before. That way the next day I have a beautiful fresh loaf of bread. So we'll see you in 12. And here we are some 12 hours later, and let's take a look, folks, at our beautiful dough. Oh yes, as you can see, it's risen very, very nicely. We've got the start of a beautiful loaf of bread right there. Okay, so before we take this out, we're going to put it in a Bonneton. Now, if you don't have a Bonneton, you could just use a regular bowl. But for this one, I have just some regular whole wheat flour, not the real nice stone ground fine stuff. This is just regular whole wheat flour. And I like to line my Bonnettone with the whole wheat flour so that the dough does not stick. And I like to use whole wheat as opposed to white flour for this purpose because it does a better job at not letting the dough stick. Okay, so speaking of dough, let's take our beautiful dough out of its container. Oh, what a nice aroma. Out of its container. It's been resting nicely. My goodness, do I ever love making bread, folks. Especially when it's this easy to make. Hey, we had an easy start last night when we made it. And now today, which is a beautiful day actually outside, it's going to continue to be easy. Okay, so let's get our dough. And you can see how it's firmed up a bit from yesterday. Remember how sticky it was on the hands? It's going to be still slightly sticky, but not really that bad. Not like it was yesterday. Okay. So at this point, all we want to do is a series of folds, which is done very, very easily. You basically just grab one end of the dough and see it feels sticky, but it's not really sticking to you. Just grab one end of the dough, lift, and fold it over. Grab the other end of the dough, lift, and fold. Grab the other end, lift, and fold, and then the other end, lift, and fold. That's it. So now you can turn it upside down, and we're going to shape this into a round. So I like to get a little bit of flour on my hands. And then to shape it into a round, folks, is very, very easy. You just grab one side, it's easiest to demo this, and pull the dough towards you. And it begins to grip the surface and tighten into a ball. Pull it towards you. Turn it, pull it towards you. Turn it, pull it towards you. Very easy. And every time you do that, it tightens up. So you want it to be, what I'm going to say, a medium tight ball. There we go. Okay, and now we take that medium tight ball, put it in our bread Bonnettone, and guess what? That was easy. And now it needs to rest. Here's the thing, it's got to rest for 2 hours, but at the 1.5 hour mark, we're going to preheat our oven to 475 degrees Fahrenheit. So I will do that. We'll see in an 1.5 hours. We'll get our oven preheated, but this needs to sit for 2. Okay, it's now been an 1.5 hours. So let's preheat our oven up to 475 degrees Fahrenheit. And in the oven, we're going to preheat it. We're going to put in an empty Dutch oven, okay, with the lid. So not only are we going to preheat the oven, but we're going to preheat our Dutch oven as well, which is very important. So in it goes. Let's give it a 30-minute preheat. So it's been 30 minutes. Our preheat is over. And what that means, folks, it's time to start baking. Let's take a look at our beautiful dough. It's been resting nicely and growing very nicely. There we have it there, looking good. Okay, so I'm going to gently put it into our Dutch oven, which is very hot. So very carefully, take that and just kind of tilt it in there. There we go. As you can see, it didn't stick, which is great. And then with a bread lame, I'm going to cut the top. I'm going to do three little cuts. If you don't have a bread lame, you could use a pair of scissors, you could use a knife, a razor blade, and just give that cut on the top. That's going to allow our dough to rise very nicely. So let's get it into the oven, and we're going to continue to cook it at 475 degrees for 30 minutes with the lid on. Okay, it has been 30 minutes. So let's take a look and see how our bread is doing, folks. Wrong button, this button. Okay. Oh, it's looking really, really good. Okay, so I've got the lid off right now. We're going to continue to cook it. Now, it depends on your oven. Could be anywhere from 8 to 15 minutes. We'll probably let it go about, looking at the color of that, it was kind of golden. I like it a little darker, so we're gonna go at least 8 minutes, probably closer to 10, but we'll take a look and check it out as we go along. But the key is the lid has to be off at this point. Let it finish cooking 8, 10, 15 minutes. Okay, it's been 8 minutes. Let's take a peek. Oh yeah, that's looking good, but I personally like it darker, so I'm gonna let it stay a little longer. So this is why it's anywhere from 8 to 15 minutes. It depends on your level of darkness and lightness. It also depends on your oven. Smaller ovens cook quicker, and every oven is different. So that's why there's that range between 8 to 15 minutes. So I'm gonna give this probably another 5 minutes. Our time is up. Let's take another peek. Okay, you know what? We're gonna stop right there. We have a beautiful loaf of bread here, folks. It's got a nice color to it. I personally like it even darker, but I know Laura prefers them not too dark, so I'm gonna stop right there. And as you can see, it doesn't stick to the Dutch oven because our Dutch oven was very hot. It was preheated very hot, so when we put the dough in there, it's so hot it doesn't stick. As you can see, it comes out really, really nice. Look at this beautiful loaf of bread, folks, right there. Isn't that nice? Okay, and remember, we used all the soft flours, so it's gonna have a nice, delicate crumb, but you can see the crust is still a beautiful, beautiful crust. What we have to do now, folks, we have to wait at least 15 minutes, a little longer more preferred, because the crust is still developing, the bread is still developing. We need to let it rest at least 15 minutes before we cut into it. And yes, we're gonna cut into it, and I'm gonna have myself a nice taste test. Yes, folks, I have been very patient. Our bread has been resting here on a cooling rack. If you don't have a cooling rack, at least put it on a wooden cutting board. You don't want it to sweat while it's cooling. But there's a beautiful loaf of bread right there, folks. And let's take a look at the bottom. That's a nice dark color. That's what I like right there. But this, folks, let's cut into it. It's still nice and it's still warm, very warm. So let's see, let's cut this end right here. Let's make a nice cut and take a look at this. Oh, that is beautiful, folks. Look at that. Beautiful, delicate crumb and very, very nice crust. It's airy, hey? Isn't that nice? That's a beautiful, beautiful loaf of bread. And like I say, the crust or the crumb is nice and delicate because we use that softer flour. Okay, you know what that means, folks? If one of our subscribers, Judy, is tuning in, we're gonna butter that bread just for her. I just had to snap myself a photo, but okay, let's get some nice butter. A little bit of butter on this fresh bread. That's what it's all about right there, folks. I like to also use olive oil on my bread, but today it's all about butter. Fresh butter on fresh bread. Amazing. Nice crumb. Really nice crust. Great flavor. That whole wheat and semolina flour that we used, folks, just gives a nice little added dimension of rustic flavor to this bread with a nice delicate crumb. And I'll tell you what, with this little bit of butter on there, oh my, is that really, really good. I just love fresh bread. And you know what, folks? You saw how easy that was to make. Very, very little effort. A little bit of time because it has to sit for 12 hours and then for 2, but minimal effort, great results, fresh bread. I hope you give this delicate version a try. You're going to be impressed. It's absolutely delicious. It's a great loaf of bread, and I want to thank you for spending time in the kitchen with me on today's episode of Cooking with the Koyas. I really hope you give it a try. And until next time, buon appetito. Oh yeah. Just excellent, excellent bread.